Chuka was an easygoing guy from Anambra State, a recent graduate of political science from NYSC. He was the kind of person who could find laughter in any situation. Charming, smart, and slightly stubborn. Chuka had dreams of making it big in Lagos after his university. But for now, he had to do his NYSC like every other Nigerian graduate. He was expecting a posting to Lagos or maybe somewhere in River State. But when he opened his posting letter and saw Ecton State, he frowned. Why this state? These people should have posted me to Lag now, chai? But he had no choice than to travel to the state he was posted. He later accepted his fate and saw this as an opportunity and advantage to explore a new state and to get to learn about another culture. And so he left for Ecton State for his 3 weeks orientation camp. After the 3 weeks orientation camp, he collected his PPA letter. What he saw shocked him. Izido. He had never heard of that place before. Which one is Izido again? He muttered. He checked Google Maps. Nothing came up. Not even one image. The only information he got was a blurry old blog post that described Izido as a forgotten village buried deep inside the forest where time moves slowly. Chuka thought it was a joke, but when he asked around, even the people at the NYSC secretariat gave him weird looks. You dey go Izido? An official asked him. Just be careful there. The place no too dey normal, sha. Chuka brushed it off. He believed in logic and not superstition. The village was a 10-hour journey from Ecton City. And the deeper they drove into the forest, the more Chuka began to worry. Network bars disappeared, the air grew thicker, the trees looked older, like they had been standing for centuries, watching silently. When he finally arrived at the village, he was taken to the couple's lodge where he met 5 other corps members that were posted there. Ife, a loud, funny worry babe who studied theatre arts. Mafon, a quiet and intelligent history graduate from Akwa Ibom. Dapo, a Yoruba boy who joked too much and wasn't ready for the village life. Hadiza and Miriam, 2 girls from the north who bonded because they were from the same tribe. The villagers welcomed them in a strange, formal way. No laughter, just tight smiles and murmured greetings. The village was beautiful but unsettling. The huts were well built, the roads clean, foodstuffs were very cheap, and the people moved like clockwork. Too perfect, like they were rehearsing a play and the corps members were their audience. The village head, the Gadumga, as it was called, was a thin, grey-skinned man whose eyes were too white, like he could see more than humans should. He said only a few words to them during the welcome ceremony. This land is old, older than your cities. It obeys its own laws. Respect them, and you'll survive your stay here. The corps members did not understand the word the man said, but they just waved it off and took it as nothing, as an old man's chant. That night, Chuka couldn't sleep. He had drums in the distance, slow and haunting. He looked out the window and saw villagers walking in circles, their faces covered with red clothes. Then suddenly, silence, not even cricket sounds. In the morning, everything was normal, and they were soon assigned to their place of primary assignment. Things were going on fine. The villagers were more welcoming. It was lively and easygoing. They did not lack for food, as things were extremely cheap in Izido for that period of time. They were enjoying their stay. 2 months later, weird things started happening. Mfon swore he saw a man walking upside down in the village. Effie said she heard someone crying from the school's borehole. Dapper once found a headless chicken walking around their lodge. The villagers never explained anything. They always smiled and said, "Don't worry, just stay indoors at night." The corps members became scared, but they stuck together, hoping the service year would pass quickly. They could not understand what was actually happening. One day, things were normal, and the next day, strange things would begin to happen. Then came the announcements. The announcement of the preparation for the blood moon. Be prepared for the blood moon, for the time is near. Be prepared, the town crier said. A week before it happened, the entire village changed. Nobody sold food. Nobody greeted them. The villagers began painting their houses white. They drew red symbols on their doors. Children were no longer allowed to play outside. Even the animals were hidden. Chuka and the other corps members were surprised at this new development. They asked the village chief what was going on. He just smiled and said, "On the night of the blood moon, the veil opens. Spirits walk these lands, and no man must be found outside. If you are found outside when it begins, consider yourself a dead meat for the spirits." The corps members thought it was a myth, some ancient cultural thing. They did not take what the old man said to them seriously. No one told them the exact date of the blood moon. So on the night it happened, they didn't know. It began as a regular evening. Chuka and the others were bored. There was no light, no network. They decided to take a walk to the village square, hoping to stretch their legs and get some fresh air. The moment they stepped out of the lodge, everywhere was quiet. They were surprised at the quietness in the village and the strange atmosphere. They didn't see anyone outside, and it seemed strange to them. But they did not go back. They continued on their way to the village square, with hope to meet some people there. Just then, a red lightning bolt cracked the sky. The moon above them turned dark red, blood dripping from the edges like it was wounded. The air shifted. The village disappeared. They were now standing in a dark forest. Not like the one around Izido. This one was ancient. The trees blurred from their trunks. The sky was swirling with red mist. Shadows moved in the corners of their eyes. "Where are we?" Ife whispered. No one answered. They turned around to find their way back, but the path was gone. Then the forest spoke. Whispers, laughters, screams all around them. Just then, Dapo remembered what the village chief had said to them about the night of the blood moon. It was then he realized they were in big trouble. "Guys, we need to get out of this place right now, or we all die," he said to them. Today is the day of the blood moon the village chief talked about. But it was too late to change what has already begun, for they had to pay the price of negligence. They ran, but there was nowhere to run to. As they ran, they ended up at the same spot, running in circles. Before you know it, Mufon let out a loud scream. Hands reached out from the soil and dragged him under, leaving only his shoes. Depo stopped running and looked behind him. Bad mistake. Different creatures appeared instantly and started running behind him. They caught up with him, dragged him to the floor, blood pouring from his ears, and gone he was. Adiza and Miriam held themselves tightly in fear, saying prayers in Quran. Just then, they were pulled apart by invisible forces. They screamed in fear for help as they were torn out of each other's arms. Ife begged and begged for help, but there was no way anything was willing to help her. These spirits were thirsty for blood. A spirit touched her forehead and she burst into dust, carried by the wind. Chuka stood alone, trembling, crying and begging for mercy. Then he saw her. A massive statue of a woman with wings stood in the center of the forest. Her face was blindfolded, her mouth smiling. At her feet were bones. Then the statue opened her mouth and spoke. Ignorance is not innocence. You were told, you were warned. The blood moon feeds on the forgotten. Now you must pay with your life. Spirits surrounded Chuka, laughing, mocking, pulling him upwards, his body rising slowly, limbs stretched in opposite directions. His screams echoed into nothing, and just then, something appeared. A woman made of fire and smoke, wearing the traditional wrapper of the Izido people. Her eyes burned like oil lamp. Chuka, she called out. Hold my hand. She stretched out her hand towards him and said, these lands will not swallow a child of its own. Your ancestors have spoken on your behalf. Your blood will not be spilled on this forest. Not today. Chuka did not understand what the woman meant, but all he wanted was to be free from the nightmare. He held her hand tightly. As she said that, she whisked him into the air, and Chuka found himself in an empty room. The next morning in Izido, the sun rose gently. Villagers stepped out like nothing had happened. The blood in the street had turned into dust. No one spoke about the core members. Their lot was cleaned out. Their names were erased from the community board. 2 days later, NYSC inspectors from town arrived at the village to inspect and check on the core members. They asked after the couples, but the village head lied to them. They left, said the Kadunga. They didn't like the village life, so they took transport in the night and left. The officials found it strange that all of them would just leave like that. They decided to go back and contact the couples to know why they left in that manner. As they were about to leave, someone came stumbling out of the nearby bush. Chuka, covered in dirt and blood, his white shirt torn, mud caked in his hair, tears streaking down his dusty, strained face. He collapsed at the feet of the inspectors, screaming, "They are gone! They are all gone! My colleagues, all of them are dead. The village, it took them. The trees, the moon, they were all watching." The inspectors panicked. "What are you saying, young man?" They were all thrown into confusion. The villagers stood frozen, eyes blank, as if a secret had been broken. They were not expecting to see any of the core members alive. Chuka was rushed to a hospital in town immediately. That same day, the authorities from town launched an investigation on the incidents that happened. It was then they discovered the horrible diabolic things going on in Izido. The village leader was arrested and taken for questioning, but he only laughed and muttered strange things in an unknown language. Though the government banned NYSC posting to Izido, nothing changed. The villagers still walked silently under the moonlight. They still paint their houses white and red, and the forest is still there, watching and whispering. Chuka survived, but he was never the same again. He speaks in riddles now. He refused to sleep when the moon is full. Sometimes he screams in a voice that doesn't sound like his. Soon he started saying strange things, things that only he understood. He began to notice strange powers forming within him. Who am I? He would ask himself. I need to know. And so, one day, Chuka vanished into the night in search of answers and was never seen again.